Okay, so in this next video, I'm going to show you how to make multiple adjustment layers so that if there's more than one type of adjustment you want to make to a selected area, you can do that. And I'm going to show you an image that has a little bit more complexity to making the to making the selections. Okay, so let me go into screen share here and okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. So on this one, I thought this was a great picture. I love the colors in this. This deep blue sky is just like so nice, and it looks really good. But these two yellow butterflies are in the shadow, and what that's doing is it's casting a kind of bluish tone on them, which is making them a little dull, and they're not really popping out the way we would want them to have just like this really ideal contrast between the yellows and the blues. So, you know, again, this is going to be a really simple fix. I'm going to use the object selection tool for both of them because they are clearly defined objects. Just draw a box around it. Couldn't be easier. I'm going to be making a second selection on the same screen. So in order to add to a selection with the object selection tool, you do have to hold your shift key before you choose the second object. So I'm going to press my shift key and I'm going to just drag a box around the butterfly, and there it is. Where I'm already seeing that there are some areas that the selection tool missed, and that's why we have to go into select and mask to correct for it. Okay, and this should be pretty easy. Okay, it just happened to come up in that black and white view, and I just kind of wanted you to see what the edges look like. On something like this, it's not quite as critical that the edges be soft. I think it's going to look just fine if we don't use the Refine Edge tool. And what you need to do when you're trying to clean up a selection is you always want to zoom in because there's a lot of little details that you miss. So on this one, we don't need to use the Refine Edge brush tool. We're going to just use the regular brush tool. And I'm going to make my brush a little bigger. It didn't pick up this little piece of mosaic right here. So I'm going to just drag the brush over that. This brush allows you to add to a mask or take away from a mask. And masks and selections are kind of opposite of each other. So the selected area is what you can see. The masked area, of course, is what you see the red mask over. And to get rid of the mask and add to the selected area, you just drag it with the brush tool. If you want to add mask, because you can see right here, it didn't get all the background, you have to hold your Option key. I'm going to do that right now. And super easy. If you've got like some tight little corners like this, I think I got it pretty well with the brush I had, but you can make like a little teeny tiny brush to get into those corners. Okay, that one's done. Whoops, I didn't want to zoom out actually. I wanted to zoom in. Actually, I just wanted to scroll over a little bit. Okay, and then let me just move my palette out of the way. So again, on this one, you can see that there's a pretty big section of this wing that it didn't pick up. And so just use your plain brush tool to add to it. Whoops, I kind of Command Z, kind of went a little too fast and messed up there. There we go. Okay, get that last little bit right here, and you can see down here at the bottom, I'm going to have to get a smaller brush to get up in that point in that corner there and hit my Option key. And I kind of use the tiny brush to outline around it, and then I can use a bigger brush. Whoops, got to hit the Option key. Use a bigger brush to fill in. Okay, there we go. Okay, and so I would say that selection looks just fine. I'm going to click OK. And there we can see the two butterflies are now selected with the marching ants. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an exposure adjustment layer. So click this little button right here, choose exposure, and it's going to make a big difference. Just a little bit of a click is making a pretty big difference. I just brought that up to like plus 0.5. And it already looks better. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Okay, now I'm gonna click back on layer 1, or maybe I needed to do this first. I wanna get my marching ants back, and I don't wanna have to go back in and select them. And the good news is that I can take, anytime I've got a mask in my layers palette, if you hover your cursor right over it, and then click on your Command key. You can see when I do that, there is a little box with a dotted line going around it. And that's telling me that it's going to make a selection out of that mask. So I'm going to click that, and there's my marching ants. They came back. Now, for me to add another adjustment layer, it's very important that you go back and reselect that layer with the picture on it. If you try to make an adjustment layer and the exposure layer is selected, it's gonna not work, okay? So this time, I'm just going to go into saturation. Okay, we've got the hue saturation option right here, and it's not gonna take much. Just, I'm gonna nudge it. See, it's just to show you, it's easy to go overboard with saturation. So you got to really watch what you're doing. If you're not using saturation subtly, you don't want to be using it at all. Okay, so you just want those yellow butterflies to really stand out, really contrast. We got some great color in this picture now because we've got the more saturated, more lightly exposed butterflies. We've got this great rich blue over here, and then we've got this kind of orangish color in the background, which is picking up the orange color in the butterflies, and it just looks fantastic. So that's all there was to that. Okay, I had one more. Which one did I want to show you guys? It was this one. Yeah, this one is actually going to be really simple as far as selecting goes, but it's going to be a little bit more tricky with the adjustment layers because I'm going to have to make several of them. So I thought this was a great picture. I just really like the angle of view that, you know, she had gotten so close to the rabbit and has this kind of crazy city stuff going on in the background. But the rabbit itself is a little dark and the sky is a little pale. It's not blown out, but it could be richer. And so I'm gonna select a bunch of different areas of this rabbit and adjust them separately. So this is the type of form where that object selection tool is really going to come in handy. It just snapped right to the edges of the rabbit because it's, you know, made out of like metal. I think I want to adjust the mask on the rabbit separately. So I'm going to choose the quick selection tool and I'm going to hold my option key down. Okay, and that got rid of the mask in the selection. I'll come back and deal with it independently later. And then if you look up here, it picked up a little bit of the antler. So I'm just gonna clean that up a little bit. Get rid of these guys. Okay, that's all there is. That's all there is to that. Okay, so I'm not really even gonna go into select and mask on this one because I feel like you know, it looks pretty good. Sorry, I was trying to just add that last little bit in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an adjustment layer to lighten the rabbit. Okay. Exposure. I think I mentioned before, but that's probably the adjustment that I use more than anything. And you know, the nice thing is when I do the exposure on this one, look at how much more saturated these nice warm reds came out when I nudged it up just a little bit. Okay, now I still think he's a little dark up in here, but if I drag the exposure to make the ears look the way I want them, then this starts to look horrible. So I'm gonna have to do them separately. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my rabbit, and this time I'm gonna use the quick selection tool just to get the darker parts of the rabbit. And I'm going to click on layer 1 again, create another exposure adjustment layer, and I'm just going to take this one up a bit more. And honestly, I think I could even do that one more time. I can do quick selection. No, you know what? Never mind. I think that's enough. That's enough for him. Okay, next thing I'm gonna do, I wanted to show you how to invert a selection. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take the object selection tool. I'm gonna drag it around the whole rabbit. And it did, again, a great job. This time it did select the mask, and I still haven't completely made up my mind on what I want to do with the mask yet. I've got to see what it looks like when I edit the sky. Okay, so right now, the rabbit, including his mask, is selected. Okay, and just get a little bit more of that mask in there. Okay, but what I really want to select is the background. Okay, I just noticed another area kind of missed. Let me see here. And then add that back in. There we go. Okay, so this is real easy. You go to select at the top of your screen and you choose inverse. And now the sky is selected instead of the rabbit. And the way you can tell the background is selected is you see the marching ants going around the edge of the frame. Okay, so this time I'm going to do 2 edits to the background. I'm going to do an exposure edit, and I'm going to do a saturation edit. And so I'm gonna click, let's do exposure first. Okay, I had been lightening things, but this time I'm going to darken the sky, because what we really want is like for the sky to be a little darker and the rabbit to be a little lighter. So we just kind of knocked some of the value down out of that sky, and you can see when I did that, it made it kind of a dull gray. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my rabbit. I'm going to select that background one more time. And again, I need to hover my cursor over the mask, hold my command key, get the little dotted lines on my icon there, and click. And here are my marching ants again. One more time, create an adjustment layer, and this time I'm going to choose hue saturation. And I'm going to drag that saturation slider to the right, and I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit more than I did in the last one. I didn't want to go too crazy on those butterflies, but I really think it looks good to have that sky be a deeper blue, and there's like some little purplish colors kind of coming through, and it contrasts really nicely with the warmth in the lower part of the rabbit. One thing I was thinking was that maybe I went just a little too much on the exposure on this part of the rabbit. So I'm just gonna take that down a little touch. And the last thing I thought I would do is, I was thinking about lightening the mask, but I'm not sure if that's gonna look good or not. And the only way we can find out is to try. So one last selection, again with my quick selection tool, and let's create an adjustment layer. Remember, I selected the layer with the rabbit before I did that. And let's do exposure and see what happens. I may or may not like it. Yeah, because I tried it before and went a little crazy. I brought it up about 0.45, just a little bit. Okay, so that one's edited, and just to, I'm going to turn off all the adjustment layers just so that we can see a comparison between before and after. So there's before and there's after. I think it looks better without the, you know what, I'm going to get rid of that one. I don't like that. I think it looks better just normal on his mask. I think his mask was exposed fine. And there he is. Okay, so, that took me, what, 5 or 6 minutes? Not a big deal. Okay. And so